Ethan stared at his phone, his heart pounding harder with each second. The message was short, cold, and final. "Ethan, you don't need to come for Christmas this year. It's better if you stay away. We don't want any distractions when Daniel comes home. He's bringing his fiancée, and we want everything perfect." The words felt like knives. He read them again and again, hoping he had misunderstood. But there it was, clear as daylight. His own father had banned him from the family Christmas party. He dialed immediately, his hand trembling. The phone barely rang before his father's deep, commanding voice came through. "Dad, what's this message supposed to mean?" Ethan asked, his voice breaking. Mr. Collins didn't hesitate. "It means exactly what it says. You're not coming. I don't want you there." Ethan felt the air leave his lungs. "Why, Dad? Because I lost my job? Because I'm not Daniel?" His father gave a bitter laugh, the kind that always made Ethan feel small. "Don't make this about your feelings. Daniel is coming home with his success. He's worked hard. He deserves a proper welcome. You're nothing but a reminder of failure. I won't have you spoiling the celebration." The words hit harder than a slap. Ethan leaned against the wall, closing his eyes as memories flooded in, moments from childhood where the favoritism had always been there, unspoken but sharp. Daniel got praised for bringing home a B+, while Ethan's A was brushed aside. On birthdays, Daniel got the bigger cake, the louder cheers, the expensive gifts. Ethan learned to hide his disappointments, to swallow his pride, but deep inside, he always carried the wound of being invisible. And now, on Christmas, the one time of year that was supposed to mean family, togetherness, forgiveness, he was being pushed out like an unwanted guest. "Dad, I'm your son too," Ethan whispered. "You're an embarrassment, Ethan," Mr. Collins replied coldly. "Don't argue. Don't show up. For once, do the family a favor and stay away." The call ended with a click, but the sound echoed in Ethan's chest like thunder. He stood there in silence, his phone slipping from his hand onto the couch. His body shook, not from anger alone, but from the deep ache of rejection. Outside the window, Christmas lights blinked from the neighbor's house, children's laughter filling the air. But inside Ethan's small apartment, it was quiet, heavy, lonely. He had never felt so cut off from his own blood. His father's voice replayed in his head. "You're an embarrassment." Ethan sat down, burying his face in his hand. A part of him wanted to scream, another part wanted to disappear. But mostly, he felt the raw sting of betrayal. Family was supposed to stand with you in your lowest moments. Instead, his own father had chosen to erase him, replacing him with Daniel's success like he had been replaced all his life. And in that moment, Ethan knew something inside him had changed. This Christmas wouldn't just be another holiday. It was the breaking point. Ethan wasn't always seen as the family failure. Growing up, he had dreams that burned bright. In school, he was sharp, curious, and full of plans for the future. Teachers often told his parents he had leadership in him, that he only needed encouragement. But encouragement was something Ethan rarely got. His father's eyes always searched for Daniel, even when Ethan was the one standing right there with good news. Ethan remembered being 16, running home with a scholarship letter in his hand, only for his father to brush past him, asking if Daniel had made the soccer team. Ethan never forgot that moment. It was as if his joy didn't matter unless it fit into the picture his father had painted. Still, Ethan pushed himself. He went to college, studied hard, and even landed a decent job at a marketing firm. For a while, it looked like he might finally step out of Daniel's shadow. He had a small apartment, a fiancée who believed in him, and dreams of building something bigger. But life didn't stay kind. The firm downsized, and Ethan was among those let go. A few months later, bills piled up, arguments with his fiancée grew sharper, and she walked out one rainy evening, saying she couldn't carry the weight of his struggles anymore. After that, it felt like everything he touched crumbled. Jobs came and went, never stable enough. He borrowed money here and there, sometimes from relatives who gave him looks filled with pity. He wore his failures like heavy chains, each one louder in his father's eyes. Daniel's life, on the other hand, moved in the opposite direction. From the moment he was old enough to shine, he shone bright. He had the grades, the charm, the confidence. He got accepted into an Ivy League university abroad, something his father bragged about at every family gathering. Every achievement of Daniel's became a trophy for Mr. Collins, proof that he had raised the perfect son. Daniel graduated, landed a high-paying job overseas, and now he was returning home with even bigger news. He wasn't just bringing his success. He was bringing his fiancée, a woman from a well-connected family, the kind who fit neatly into Mr. Collins's vision of power and prestige. This Christmas party was meant to be Daniel's grand homecoming, the golden child returning to claim his throne. Mrs. Collins, Ethan's mother, lived caught between her two sons. Ethan knew she loved him, but her love was always quiet, shadowed by fear. She rarely went against her husband's word. When Ethan was scolded, she stayed silent. When Daniel was praised, she clapped along. Sometimes Ethan would catch her eyes lingering on him, soft and guilty, as if she wanted to say more but swallowed it back. She had learned long ago that silence kept peace in the house. The Collins family looked perfect from the outside. People admired them: Mr. Collins, the strong and disciplined father; Daniel, the successful son; Mrs. Collins, the loyal wife. But Ethan knew the truth. Behind the walls, favoritism ruled. Success meant love, and failure meant invisibility. That was Ethan's place now, invisible. He lived in a small apartment on the edge of the city, working odd jobs when he could, barely managing to keep the lights on. When relatives called, they always asked about Daniel first, as if Ethan was just a footnote in the story of the family. Yet, even with the bitterness that grew inside him, Ethan still longed for something simple: respect. Not money, not applause, just the feeling that his existence mattered to the people who were supposed to love him unconditionally. He wanted his father to look at him without disappointment. He wanted his mother to stand up for him once, just once. And even though Daniel never treated him badly, Ethan wished his brother would notice the gap their father had carved between them. As Christmas drew near, Ethan felt that longing clash with his pain. He wanted to belong, but the door was shut. He wanted to be loved, but his father had made it clear that only Daniel's success was worthy of celebration. That was the truth that haunted him. His family measured love in achievements, and by their measure, Ethan was worth nothing. The family WhatsApp group was always noisy, filled with uncles sending prayers every morning, aunts dropping chain messages, and cousins sharing jokes. Ethan rarely typed in it anymore. Most of the time, he muted the group and watched from a distance. But that evening, as he scrolled through his phone, a new message caught his eye. It was from his father. Reminder: Christmas dinner is for family only. Please be on time. This year is special because Daniel and his fiancée will be with us. The word should have been normal, but the phrase family only cut deep. Ethan knew what it meant. He wasn't part of that family anymore. One of his cousins replied with laughing emojis. Another typed, "Can't wait to meet the golden boy and his queen." The comments went on, full of excitement, but not one person mentioned Ethan. Not one asked if he would be there. Finally, Ethan typed, "What about me? Am I invited or not?" The reply came quickly. His father wrote, "Ethan, I already told you. You are not coming. This is a celebration, not a pity show. We don't want negativity around Daniel's success." Silence followed. No cousin, no uncle, no aunt dared to defend him. The group went quiet, as if everyone was waiting for his reaction. Shame burned his face, even though he was alone in his apartment. He deleted the chat before he could read more. Anger rose in his chest. He wanted to throw the phone across the room. He wanted to scream. Instead, he sat there, staring at the blinking Christmas lights outside his window, feeling like a stranger in his own bloodline. The thought crossed his mind. Maybe this was the last straw. Maybe he should cut ties for good. No calls, no visits, no trying. If they didn't want him, then he would erase himself from. But another voice inside him whispered, "Don't let them erase you. Don't let them push you out like you're nothing." He grabbed his jacket and stormed out of the apartment. He needed to breathe. He needed someone to hear him before he drowned in his own rage. Marcus was the only one he could think of. They had grown up on the same street, shared the same classrooms, and leaned on each other through tough times. Marcus knew his family well. He had witnessed the favoritism with his own eye. When Ethan reached Marcus's small barbershop, the lights were still on. Marcus was sweeping the floor, music playing softly in the background. He looked up, surprised. "Ethan? You look like hell, man. What happened?" Ethan dropped into the chair and buried his face in his hand. "They banned me, Marcus. My dad banned me from the Christmas party. Said it's for family only." Marcus frowned. "He really said that? To his own son?" Ethan nodded, his voice cracking. "He said I'm an embarrassment, that I'll spoil Daniel's celebration. Can you believe that? After everything, I don't even feel like his child anymore." Marcus leaned on the counter, shaking his head slowly. "I've seen how he treats you, Ethan. You've always been the shadow. But this is cruel. Christmas is supposed to be about love, not pride." Ethan's fists tightened. "I keep asking myself, what did I do so wrong? Is it because I failed at work? Because my fiancé left? Because I'm not Daniel? I've tried, Marcus. I've tried so hard, but nothing is ever enough." Marcus sighed, pulling up a chair beside him. "Listen, you're not a failure. You're a man trying to stand after life knocked you down. Your father can't see that. He only sees trophies. But you're not weak. You're stronger than you think." The words sank into Ethan's chest, heavy but true. He wanted to believe them. Still, the anger refused to leave. "Part of me wants to stay away. Just cut them off and never look back. But another part, I want to show up. I want to walk into that house, look my father in the eye, and prove I'm not invisible." Marcus studied him for a moment. "If you go, Ethan, you need to be ready. He won't hold back. But maybe it's time you don't hold back either." Ethan looked up, his jaw set. For the first time that night, his heart found a strange kind of calm. "Then that's what I'll do. I'll go. He banned me, but I'll still go. Not to beg for a seat at the table, but to finally say what I've been holding in for years. Marcus nodded slowly. Then make sure you say it loud enough for everyone to hear. Ethan sat back, staring at the floor. The decision was made. This Christmas wouldn't be about gifts or carols. It would be about truth. The night before Christmas, Ethan lay awake on his bed, staring at the cracked ceiling. His mind wouldn't stop replaying old memories, the kind that cut deeper than fresh wounds. He remembered his 10th birthday, when he had asked for a small toy car. His father barely noticed when he unwrapped it. But the very next month, Daniel's birthday came, and the house was filled with balloons, music, and relatives. Daniel got a shiny new bicycle, and Mr. Collins carried him around the room like he had won a medal. Ethan had clapped and smiled that day, but inside, something in him broke. Another memory came, the school award ceremony. Ethan had received first place in English literature, a prize he had worked hard for. But as soon as the event ended, his father turned to Daniel and said, "Work harder on math. That's what matters in life." Ethan's prize slipped into the background. He remembered hiding it in a drawer at home, where it gathered dust. Now, as a grown man, those moments weighed heavy on his chest. They weren't just small slights. They were proof of years of being unseen, unloved, and pushed aside. And tomorrow, when he walked into that house, he wasn't going to keep silent anymore. When the day came, Ethan dressed simply. No fancy clothes, no attempt to impress. Just a clean shirt, dark trousers, and his old watch. He stood outside the Collins family house for a long time, watching through the window as relatives laughed and hugged. Christmas lights sparkled across the front porch, the smell of roasted turkey drifting through the air. He could hear music, laughter, and the sound of Daniel's name repeated again and again. Finally, Ethan pushed the door open and stepped inside. The room grew quiet. Conversations paused. Some cousins whispered, others exchanged quick glances. Everyone knew he wasn't supposed to be there. Mrs. Collins was the first to move. She rose from the sofa, her eyes wide, her lips parting as if to say something, but nothing came out. She only clutched her hands together. Daniel, standing near the Christmas tree with his fiancée, lit up when he saw Ethan. "Brother," he exclaimed, crossing the room quickly to hug him. "I didn't know you'd be here. I'm glad you came." Ethan hugged him back briefly, but his eyes searched for his father. Mr. Collins stood near the dining table, a glass of wine in his hand, his jaw tight, his eyes cold. "Well," Mr. Collins said, his voice cutting through the silence. "Look who decided to show up. The son who can't follow simple instructions." The relatives shifted uncomfortably. Some looked at Ethan with pity, others with curiosity. Ethan straightened his back. "I'm here because I'm family, whether you want me or not." Mr. Collins laughed bitterly. "Family? You don't even deserve the word. Look at your brother, successful, respected, bringing honor to this house. And look at you, a man with nothing to show for his life." Ethan felt the sting of those words, but he didn't move. He had expected this. He kept his voice steady. "I may not have Daniel's success, but I'm still your son." Daniel's smile faltered, his eyes darting between their father and Ethan. "Dad, please." But Mr. Collins raised his hand, silencing him. "No, Daniel. This has gone on long enough. Ethan needs to hear the truth. You've wasted every chance given to you. You're a burden. Tonight is about Daniel, not about your failures." Mrs. Collins stepped forward then, her voice soft but trembling. "Please, let's not do this in front of everyone. It's Christmas." "Silence." Mr. Collins snapped, his tone so sharp that she froze. "Don't defend him. He chose his path." Ethan's chest tightened. He looked at his mother, her eyes wet with unshed tears, and something inside him broke wide open. He had swallowed these insults his whole life. Not tonight. Not anymore. He stepped forward, his voice louder now, carrying across the room. "My path. You never gave me one. You made sure every road led back to Daniel. Every birthday, every achievement, every moment, I was invisible to you. Do you remember my scholarship? Do you remember my awards? Do you remember when I worked day and night just to prove myself? No, you don't. Because nothing I did mattered unless Daniel was the star." The room was silent. Relatives froze, their eyes fixed on him. Ethan's voice cracked, but he pressed on. "You call me a failure, but you never once asked me what I was going through. You never stood by me when I lost my job, when I lost my fiancé, when I was fighting just to breathe. You didn't see me, Dad. You only saw Daniel, and you made me believe I was worth nothing." Gasps came from a few relatives. An aunt whispered, "Lord of mercy," under her breath. Daniel looked shaken, his fiancée gripping his arm nervously. "Ethan," he began softly, but Ethan raised his hand. "I'm not saying this to hurt Daniel. I'm saying it because I refuse to stay silent any longer. You've built this family on comparison, on pride, on favoritism, and you've broken me piece by piece. But tonight, I won't be broken anymore." His words hung in the air, heavy and raw. Some relatives nodded slowly, their faces showing sympathy. Others avoided eye contact, unwilling to get involved. Mrs. Collins clutched the edge of the sofa, tears now rolling freely down her cheeks. Mr. Collins's face darkened, his jaw trembling with anger. "You dare stand in my house and speak to me this way?" Ethan took a deep breath, his voice steady. "Yes, because for once in my life, I deserve to be heard." The room buzzed with tension. Some relatives murmured, others shifted uncomfortably. The Christmas celebration had turned into a battlefield, and every word Ethan spoke cracked the perfect image his father had built for years. For the first time, the room was so quiet you could hear the crackle of the fireplace. Everyone was frozen, waiting to see what would happen next. Mr. Collins's face was red with fury, his chest heaving as he glared at Ethan. "You ungrateful boy," he spat, his voice trembling with rage. "After all I've done for this family, after all the sacrifices I've made, this is how you repay me? By shaming me in front of everyone? Let me tell you something, Ethan, you are no son of mine." The words hit the air like a gunshot. Gasps filled the room. An uncle coughed nervously. A cousin shook his head, whispering, "That's too much." Mrs. Collins pressed her hand against her mouth, her whole body trembling. Ethan stood there, his body numb. He had always feared those words, had imagined them in his darkest moments, but hearing them out loud was like being stabbed in the chest. He opened his mouth to respond, but before he could, Daniel stepped forward. "Enough, Dad." The room turned to him. Daniel's voice was calm but firm, his usual smile gone. He stood between Ethan and their father, his eyes steady. "Don't talk to him like that," Daniel continued. "He is your son, and you don't get to erase him just because he doesn't fit into your idea of success." Mr. Collins frowned, clearly taken aback. "Daniel, stay out of this. You don't understand." "No," Daniel cut in louder this time. "I understand more than you think. You've put me on this pedestal my whole life. But do you even know what it's done to me? Do you know what I've been carrying?" Whispers spread among the relatives. Daniel's fiancée touched his arm gently, but he shook her hand off, his eyes fixed on his father. "Everyone here thinks my life is perfect," Daniel said, his voice breaking for the first time. "But the truth is, it's not. I lost my job abroad months ago. The company downsized, just like Ethan's did. I've been pretending everything is fine, but it's not. I'm drowning in debt, and I didn't even know how to tell you because I knew you'd see me as a disappointment too." The room went silent again, shock written on every face. Mr. Collins blinked, his expression unreadable. Daniel turned slightly, his eyes flicking toward Ethan. "And as for my relationship, it's not what you think. My fiancé and I were barely holding on. We argue more than we laugh. Half the time, I wonder if we'll even make it to the wedding." His fiancée looked down, her cheeks flushed, saying nothing. Daniel took a deep breath, his voice heavy with emotion. "Dad, I've envied Ethan for years. Not because of what he has, but because of who he is. He falls, yes, but he keeps getting back up. He survives without your praise, without your approval. Meanwhile, I've been trapped under your expectations, terrified of failing, terrified of losing your love. I look successful on the outside, but inside I'm breaking." Ethan stared at his brother, stunned. He had never imagined Daniel carried such pain. For years, he had seen him as untouchable, the golden child who had everything. Now, in front of everyone, Daniel was tearing down that illusion. "Do you know what it feels like, Dad?" Daniel continued, his voice louder now. "To know that your worth in this house depends only on your achievements? To feel like if you slip even once, you'll be nothing? You made me into your trophy, and I've been suffocating under it. I may look like the golden child, but I'm just as broken as Ethan. Maybe even more." Mr. Collins's hand shook as he set his glass of wine down. His eyes darted between Daniel and Ethan, his mouth opening and closing, but no words came out. For the first time, he looked uncertain, almost small. Mrs. Collins stepped forward, her voice trembling. "Do you see it now?" she whispered. "Do you see what you've done to them? Both of them." Relatives murmured among themselves. Some nodded in agreement, others avoided Mr. Collins's gaze. The perfect image of the Collins family had cracked wide open, and no one could deny it. Ethan swallowed hard, his eyes stinging with tears he had been holding back for years. He looked at Daniel, who now seemed less like a rival and more like a brother standing beside him for the first time. The silence in the room grew heavy. All eyes turned back to Mr. Collins, waiting for his response. But he said nothing. He only stood there, his face pale, his pride collapsing under the truth he could no longer deny. For the first time, he seemed to realize that his obsession with appearances, with success, had cost him both sons. They weren't his trophies, they were his children, and he had wounded them both. The party, once filled with laughter and music, was now drowned in silence. No one dared to move. The Christmas lights twinkled softly in the corner, mocking the heaviness in the air. Two sons stood broken but finally honest. A father stood stripped of his pride. And the whole family watched, knowing nothing would ever be the same again. "He's left the master for the he didn't get the heard I've get my singer, I call we, ne, was ring here, he called day. Das have been out for them in my das brother first when a mom out in hurry, so we, I saw hand in his open sir, nothing. Well, so for the nice that I get out to their saw had das nickazim, man now, my dear forget left it, he'll not life in this now worth next in the thieves naked sharp berry and look. Swasser thought for very eva head, snamsh dash that's the own and now hugging of you. Das, that's the other that is that's he, what's the, or wouldn't boy then and I know that will the thief. What, Elion outfish no, so I'll give my house in the little hot sea bombs. Now I'm didn't the thief. It was serious. That's not where I lost that. He must see you and didn't say that. He'll fast that's he. Mom's out the lock, both the noisy. Now we're revving our from it up. Sis now as he's clicking it on. Sis now kissing it on. He'll the what Miss fluffy. Fails in a mouth surf for the fabric of fuss medally. He lulls. Sarah Murph with Merlin dust it up in my werewolf. Snemo Murph surf from the thief. Him vigor. The theme vigor. Find a whoops for the shot. Why, because I usually never fit with a shot. I guess silver herb so wish. Here I'll smell. He'll ask me little. And the thief and I was more earth byron at her world for dear hish. Her own mean it on. To be honest, on up. All the surf in the last in the bish. Straight to the lift the hour. He'll merch tonight her. The hour gets half chops in the locks of him. Her either the corpse silves or thumbs if an ice. And the thief. Her would the door can you call when I give it. Her legs. He'd already the lost set up. And the shit that mocks it on. Snazarps or the if it more wood left in the thief. Serene your mouth surf for the. Her losh, and the thief gas of night is for me. Her and did line night, and I get her soaps with the larp. Gosh, so up more. I mean, a nest, but now having it on. First, at them douche there, getting baby and fell am what I should not vilva. And the scared to live. He that's so selves, or for the sign night. Wishing a veal mat and a veal reef. Her losh and the thief knows of nice and he'll cook me expect stuff sign night. Nurse and the dips off in the thief. Yo, my now have buying ourselves sign night. Over was it not feeling out for doing him as I when you call Zoe. Hurry laugh as I when you call me Zoe. Air feels near to sort of. He left that's your vet. I call with the dirty. He'll hear from the big British owner and your nud map. He'll miss this. Nud map. Her with the door nurse he sent and the thief you'll off the hour. These are in the fish with the larva. Snell out three of the corby on. First damn keeps. Hurry nights and got a dar. Floss am but our master for the fnet. My ow when you are. That nursery mock but you didn't know that. I guess you're all one. Whoops, no marks of selves. Thar will so I don't cat that's a good. Or forget bring all one doing it. Mark and your gravens of their white fit. Fall for their wooing is surf such. Floss mingers, floss minger. Then is echt fell off the snaps thee. Over was with off the eaten did he. That eaten did he. Foot did him there vending it must dutch or none of thee. Snell out standing it. There for el on get safe and snell out such. Get hands with the. Get in and fast sage the lock when it must surf me do. Her the opposite Billy. Get the he that's the dark singing off and as they are sashed. Snemmum all or Fred looks in the thief. The three of them sat quietly on the front steps, the cold night air wrapping around them. Above, the Christmas lights from the porch blinked softly, casting a gentle glow on their faces. For a while, no one spoke. They didn't need to. The silence itself felt healing. Ethan leaned back, looking up at the stars. His chest still carried the weight of his father's words, but it no longer crushed him. For the first time, he could breathe without the heavy need for approval pressing down on him. He knew his father might never change, might never call him worthy, but that didn't matter anymore. What mattered was that he had found his own voice. His mother reached for his hand, squeezing it tightly, as if to promise that she would never be silent again. On his other side, Daniel sat with his head bowed, but there was relief in his posture, as if he too had been freed from a cage. Ethan smiled faintly, the corners of his mouth soft. You know, he said quietly, I used to think family was about who achieved the most, who made Dad proud. But I see it now. Family is about who stands with you when everything falls apart. Daniel nodded, his eyes glistening. Then we'll stand together. No more shadows. Mrs. Collins let out a trembling breath, her eyes shining with tears. But this time they weren't only of sadness. They were of release. She leaned her head on Ethan's shoulder, and he let her. The laughter and chatter from inside the house drifted faintly through the windows, but it no longer stung. Ethan didn't feel excluded anymore. He felt stronger, lighter. He might never win his father's love, but he had something better now. His own dignity, his brother's solidarity, and his mother's embrace. And as the Christmas lights flickered above them, Ethan realized that was enough. For the first time in his life, he wasn't living in comparison. He was living in freedom. Hey besties. Thanks so much for watching till the end. This story showed how Ethan faced rejection at Christmas, but found his strength, his brother's support, and his mother's love. Remember, family isn't about perfection, it's about acceptance. If you enjoyed this, don't forget to like, share, leave a comment, and subscribe for more stories. See you in the next one. Bye.